Welcome to Mums at the Table. I'm Rachel. I'm here with Shona. Have you had a good week?
I have. And you?
Yeah.
Anything exciting?
I don't know. It's just, chugging on,
One of those weeks.
I think, at the time of year when we're just chugging on, getting through everything, but that's a good thing too. Coming up today, we have got our nutrition segment with Amanda. She'll be talking to Gia. We've also got Dr. Simone, who'll be sitting down to chat with Fiona. Don't forget, if you've got any questions about nutrition with your kids or any sort of doctor GP questions, please send them in. Hit us up on our social media and we'd love to answer them for you. But today, we want to talk about taking kids to work. Now, I know over the years, culture's changed a little bit. We see things a little bit differently. People are working more from home. They're even taking their kids to work more. So whether it be them catching the bus in the afternoon and hanging out there till mum or dad's finished, or having to take them in the holidays because you don't have childcare, or the one that's always happened, taking them when they're sick.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Is this something that you sort of have something against, or?
Oh, she looks at me
I
like
know,
that.
because she's looking at me like, "Bleh."
Look, I haven't employed anybody for a very long time in my businesses, but I'm not sure that I would be too overly happy as an employer having children coming into the workplace. There's, some work issues there. Is your mind completely focused on work, or are you 50 on the kids and 50 on work? What's your productivity rate? What about ONHS issues? There's all sorts of things that just go ding, ding, ding in my head as an employer.
Yeah.
As a mum, I never did it. If the kids were sick, I either stayed home or Gary stayed home. But we had that luxury because we've been self-employed most of our lives.
Yeah, okay.
So for me, it's a bit different than perhaps you.
Yeah, and I would say there's obviously some work scenarios where you can't take your kids.
You don't want them in a mechanic's workshop
You don't want them in a hospital,
No.
lots of, for a nurse or doctor. I work in an office outside of this, and during the school holidays at the beginning of the year and other school holidays, I've had to take my kids to work 1 or 2 days when, my husband's not home or I don't have a carer for them. And you're 100% right. My productivity is not at its best because I've got an eye on them going, what are they doing? But I'm lucky in the office that I'm in that I have a space for them.
Right.
But you can have some really awkward scenarios as well. So I've worked at home. I've had that awkward child yell out, "Mum, I need to do a poo," while I'm on the phone to a client.
No.
I've had the child tip the chair and I've gone, "What?" In the middle of concentrating on a project and email. So it can be really awkward. But is it great that the flexibility is there and mums can continue and have those opportunities?
Yeah, it is. And I have to agree with you there that it is great that we've now got flexibility in the workplace.
I think we're getting to the point where you can't just say, this is this boundary and this is this boundary. I think we're recognising that some of that has to sort of cross over a little bit to provide that balance and opportunity.
Does it come back to us wanting it all?
It could come back to us wanting it all, or it just could be we all have to acknowledge life. What do you do? Have you taken your kids to work? Have you had some crazy scenarios? What are your tips? Jump onto our social media and let us know.
Hey, thanks for joining us at Mums at the Table. I'm sitting with Dr. Simone. We are going to talk about babies with colic. Colicky babies.
Colicky babies, babies who cry and we don't necessarily know why.
Yes.
And sometimes that can be at a certain time of day, and sometimes whatever you try and do.
I thought that was just normal, just having a baby cry.
Well, it's nice to think that babies have a reason for when they're crying.
Right.
So they're hungry or they're dirty or they need a cuddle. But sometimes some babies tends to be later in the afternoon, later in the day, tends to be in the first 6 months, and they just will not settle for whatever you want to do for them.
Right, so there's a certain time of the day the baby will just start crying for no apparent reason. Because I know as new parents, you want to make sure your baby's okay, so you'd be looking for...
Absolutely.
Are they hungry, like you mentioned, do they need changing, do they need a cuddle?
Yeah.
But they just cry?
Some babies, and look, a lot of the time there is a reason, it's just you need to be a little bit more detective-like to try and find out what it is. Okay. And so if that is, do they have... Generally, colicky stuff tends to be gut related. Okay. So our baby, has your baby had a little burp that hasn't quite found its way out yet? I know that was a cause of my daughter just not settling, and then once it was out, she was fine.
Right.
Or Have they got some wind on the other end that needs to come out?
Okay.
Those are the sorts of things that can sometimes give us a clue as to the cause of what's going on with a colicky
So
baby.
is it usually got to do with gut?
For the most
related
part,
issues?
yeah, absolutely.
Or why a baby would develop colic?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Some of the things that we can try and do to help when bubs have colic, cuddles are good.
Right.
Sometimes feeding a baby helps, but keep the feeds small, because if their guts are a little bit irritated, then having a smaller amount of milk in there will really help in terms of, other than otherwise having a larger volume and stretching things out and making things a little bit more unpleasant for the bub. Also be really diligent about burping and making sure that you get every single last one of those burps
I know.
up.
When you're so tired and you're feeding your baby and then you've got to burp, it's like a whole different process. And it takes another...
It adds another half hour
or
something like that.
It does. So make sure you burp your baby.
And the other thing that can be really, really useful in terms of releasing wind at the other end is like bicycle kicks and those sorts of things for the legs, where you have baby on their back, and you just cycle their legs to try and help the wind come out.
I know one of my friends used to practice rubbing the baby's tummy.
Yep, that can be helpful as well.
Right.
Absolutely.
So it's just all about relieving that gas.
Yeah. Now, the other thing to be mindful of in this situation is that sometimes if you're noticing that your baby is more distressed during the day rather than just at a certain time of day, or if they're vomiting more or those sorts of things, then you do need to be mindful about things like reflux and whether that can be an issue as well. And so if you've got any concerns about your baby's weight gain or general disposition, then always check with your doctor.
Do you get medication to treat your baby for colics?
So there are things that can help. So things like the gripe water or an infant friend and those sorts of things can be useful, but babies will grow out of it.
Thanks so much, Dr. Simone, for those awesome tips. I know that will help a lot of mums out there who are dealing with babies that are crying and baby colic. If you need help or more help, go to your GP, get that help.
Hi guys, we're here with Amanda. Hi Amanda.
Hi Gia.
We're here for another topic. This topic, Amanda, brings a lot of anxiety to a lot of mothers, I find, especially me. And it's about school lunches. It's about sending your kid to school with an awesome packed lunch, and your kid comes home every single day without eating it all.
It's very frustrating.
It is. And what do you do?
Yeah, I know. And I think it's a common challenge that a lot of parents face. And there's a few different things to consider if this is happening. Your child is consistently coming home with a full lunchbox, or you're getting reports that they're throwing out their food at school. First of all, just check that the food is easy to access. So make sure that they're able to open the containers, any packaging that you send before you do send it to school.
Okay, so make it easy for them to get the lunch.
That's right. And then secondly is making sure that the food is actually easy to eat. It's not too messy. I think some kids get a little bit
because they're sensory as well?
Yeah, and they don't like the stickiness. And so just making sure that food is in easy to eat pieces, provide a spoon or a fork if needed.
My daughter loves a fork because I always give her a kiwi fruit.
Yes.
But she hates touching it. So I always put a plastic fork in there and then she eats it.
Oh, perfect.
Whereas if I forget, she won't eat it.
You've solved the problem then. The next thing is just check how much food you're sending. So maybe the quantity is too much, and I think some kids get a little bit overwhelmed by the quantity of food.
Okay.
The other thing to think about is kids only have about 10 to 15 minutes to actually eat their lunch. So it's not very long, and I think they're quite eager to go off and play with their friends.
It's so true, because my daughter, Olive, when she comes home from school in the car, she says straight away, I didn't finish all my lunch because the bell went and I didn't even get to play. So what I've started doing now, and this might be a good tip for you guys, if she doesn't eat all her lunch, I'll just open the lunchbox when she gets in the car after I've picked her up, and she just eats it on the way home because she's hungry by that stage.
That's a great idea, and I do that with my kids as well.
Yeah, it's so good.
The other thing is just maybe packing a little bit less food or finger foods maybe, so it's really easy for them to get to.
Yes.
So the next thing is, I think it's really good just to talk to your kids, plan lunches with them, get them to help you pack their lunches as well.
I think that's key. Amanda, you shared that with me just before we started, and I think for me, that is the best tip to give people.
Yeah, I think so too. And you can sit down with your child, come up with a list of healthy options that they would like to have and that you would like them to have. Make a list, put it on the fridge, and then when you pack their lunchbox or they pack their lunchbox, You know what to pack. They know what to
know
pack.
what they're getting, which is awesome because
and they're happy to eat it.
That's right. Thank you so much for your tips. And just before we go, one more tip. I know that you said before that if your kids don't eat everything, don't worry about it if they don't eat all their lunch, because they can just have a good breakfast and a good dinner.
That's exactly right. Then you know they're getting pretty much all the nutrients they need for the day.
And we're going to leave you with that. We'll see you next time.
Hey, I've got Dr. Wood is in the hood talking motherhood. No, well, actually, we will be talking about motherhood, but more specifically, exercise during pregnancy. Exercising during pregnancy is something I didn't do.
Okay.
What's your
you would
advice
be in
there?
the normal group.
Okay.
So
Good to hear.
I think it's a bad idea to start doing hectic exercise when you're pregnant if you don't do that beforehand.
Yes, okay.
So let's say you're already a gym junkie and
Right.
you go there, 3 days or 5 days a week, whatever, and you just go hardcore. It is totally safe to continue with your normal exercise routine.
Okay.
The only things we don't like you doing when you're pregnant is things like bungee jumping, kickboxing, water skiing, stuff like that, where you could have some sudden impact. But normal exercise, physical stuff, like
physical contact,
you can do physical, like
rugby league. Don't be playing rugby union.
No, yeah, and the world's most aggressive contact sport, netball.
Really?
I know, not just joking about that.
Okay.
But have you seen them? They're hectic. Anyway, so these things
like
are not
tennis.
recommended, right?
Okay.
But if you want to go to the gym, do pump class, cycling, you can go jogging if you want to, but things might become uncomfortable, and particularly sometimes people's breasts get quite big when they're pregnant, so you need to get extra support there.
Yes.
It's okay to get sweaty,
Okay.
for your heart rate to go up, that's all fine. You can go swimming, all these things are normal stuff, but don't...
Throughout the whole pregnancy?
The whole pregnancy,
Okay.
but...
Don't all of a sudden become
Don't think,
some
oh my
gym
goodness, I'm pregnant now, I want to now try and run a marathon. That's not what you should do.
Okay.
If you're somebody who's never exercised before,
Yes.
then the simple thing you could do would be to go for a half-hour walk.
Yes.
Maybe in the evening. It's really good. Get your partner home.
Yeah.
Talk about the day's events. Walk around the block. It's neutral territory, so
Yeah.
you can have an argument without really having an argument.
Yeah.
And you can just walking, and that sort of gentle exercise is particularly good for your glucose metabolism.
Right.
And it's also good for your relationship.
And
right?
swimming?
Swimming's also good.
Take it easy.
Yep.
Ease into it.
Yeah, ease into it.
I
Don't
like
try
the
and
sound
do
of that. Ease
2
into
or 3K
these
in your
exercises.
first go, right?
Right, okay.
And if you're somebody who is a really fit person and
Yes.
does a lot of long-distance swimming or whatever it is, as your pregnancy develops, your level of endurance will be reduced.
Okay.
And that's normal because the heart is not only just pumping blood for your muscles, but also
Yes.
supplying the placenta, and the placenta gets first priority.
Right.
And so if you're starting to feel close, then as the, your
Be kind to yourself.
Exactly.
Listen to your body.
Yep.
If it's telling you to ease up, ease up.
ease up. Yeah, that's right. So
Great tips.
use common sense, basically.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wood. I hope that's helped you with your pregnancy journey. Don't forget, subscribe to our YouTube channel and keep it locked right here on Mums at the Table.
So it's something I think all mums do. We've all felt it. We've probably all done it subconsciously. It's the whole competitive mum syndrome, talking about, well, this is where my child's at or my baby's doing this, and then taking on that guilt if your child's not. What did you do?
Well, I think for me, with our eldest, it was a bit more difficult because he was a special needs child. So I really felt the pressure that he wasn't keeping up with all the other children, and all the mothers were like, oh, my baby's rolled over at 3 months and my baby sat up at 4 and mine wasn't doing that. And so in the end, I stopped going to mothers group because that wasn't happening. And it was probably to the detriment of us that we stopped going because it isolated me more.
But obviously at the time you needed a break from that.
Yeah, I didn't want to be told that my child was lagging behind because he had failure to thrive and failure to feed and a whole lot of other things. And so I didn't want to be told that he wasn't as up to date as all the other children.
And at the same time, I don't think, parents can help wanting to talk about the situation that they're in, where their kids are at and what are they doing. And that sort of comes out. You don't necessarily mean for that to upset someone, but it can inadvertently set up that competition between mums and maybe that sort of going, oh, well, why isn't my child there, and that inadequacy?
And, one good thing came out of it that later on down the track I joined up with a mother's group for Aaron, the youngest child, and I could see that there were a few things that Joshua wasn't achieving at the right milestone. So I could actually get those things looked at and attended to, which then helped him out as he went further along in life. Again, though, you know, it's all hindsight, isn't it?
And it's looking back,
the competitiveness, I think, is human nature, and we tend to do it because we're always looking to what other people have got or are doing.
And we want our kids to have that normal life and be part of that group that, you know, that can sort of thrive, I guess.
Not to be different.
What would have kept you in the playgroup then?
I think community, I think understanding, I think a bit of empathy rather than just always, oh, your child's not achieving.
So, not always talking about your own child.
Then I wouldn't have felt so guilty that he wasn't doing the things he should have done.
Yeah, and look, I think it's just being aware. There's also the part of me that says, actually, that's probably on me a little bit to say, that's where their child is at. My child is different. You know, okay, check. Are they hitting those right milestones? Do I need to get them checked out? But if not, what's the harm in your child getting there a little bit slower?
That's right, because by the time they get to school, they're pretty much all the same.
I was going to say, I think they call them popcorn kids. We all sort of pop it and develop at a different time. That's all we've got time for today. Don't forget you can hit us up on our social media. We would love to hear from you. But until next week, bye.